American Veda is about the influence of the tradition that went for thousands of years by the term Sanatana Dharma, meaning eternal way, and that the West came to call Hinduism. On America, the history, to give a brief overview, we'll get to later, but for about 200 years, the teachings of that aspect of that tradition, known as Vedanta, and the methodologies known as yoga, by which I mean the full package of mind, body, and spirit methods, not just the physical exercises that have come to define yoga lately, have been adapted, absorbed, and assimilated by millions of people in America. And my contention in the book is that that assimilation process has been deeper and more pervasive and more profound than people realize, and that has been a very good thing and could turn out to be historically one of the most important developments in this age of globalization, certainly one of the most important religious and spiritual developments, because the impact of that, what I call great transmission, has been quite profound. The vision of ultimate reality that has been introduced to the West is one where the infinite is both transcendent and immanent. That is to say, we live in a sea of oneness that manifests in a multiplicity of ways, and that the divine is therefore both within us and everywhere around us. And God, if one chooses to think in terms of God, can be understood either as formless, transcendent, beyond anything we can imagine, or with form in any myriad way, any of the myriad ways. Hence the famous, what's now becoming famous, Vedic sort of maxim from the Rig Veda, which is thousands of years old, that truth is one, the wise call it by many names. That vision of the sort of universal laws of spirituality that can be expressed in a multiplicity of forms and pursued in a variety of ways has come to be a very accepted notion in America. Taking it a step further, that ground of being that we're talking about, the ultimate reality, is also our own ultimate reality. It's what we are. Hence the Upanishads say, I am that ultimate reality. Thou art that ultimate reality. All of this is nothing but that ultimate reality that has come to have many names and is depicted in many forms. And further, the realization of that, the awakening to the truth of that, confers many blessings, both short-term and long-term, many benefits, inner peace, joy, more love, and so forth, the kind of things you hear people talking about when they describe the benefits of yoga or meditation, and ultimately a freedom from suffering is promised. And further, that there are many, many pathways, many methodologies that may be suitable for one person and another set of methodologies that will be more suitable to another person. That package of ideas and principles and practices is what came to us from India, and it proved to be very very appealing right from the beginning to a certain subset of Americans, namely well-educated, free-thinking people, for whom this seemed a very rational and empirical way to understand religion or spirituality, and for those who were not religious, a way to be spiritual without having to be conventionally religious. Hence, we now have this subgroup of Americans, the fastest growing religious cohort in America, called spiritual but not religious, which I think would be inconceivable without the introduction of the ideas and practices from the East. And it was also embraced, I should say, by secular people and scientific people who were not religious or even anti-religious, because secular people could see these teachings as a methodology of self-improvement, personal development, and scientific people could see these premises not as theology, but as a sort of hypothesis that could be tested in a laboratory or through personal experience. And for them, for the psychologists, it became an avenue of inquiry into the nature of consciousness and levels of human development that sort of added to our knowledge of what human potential is and can be. And for healthcare professionals, it became a new set of mind-body practices that are good for anxiety and stress release and so on and so forth. It all started rather slowly, and then it built up like a river that gathers force as it progressed through time, and as technology of communication and transportation got more sophisticated, and the exposure to the ideas and practices from the East became more accessible. And now, of course, you can find anything you want on the internet. When I first started looking into this stuff in the 60s, I had trouble in New York City finding a copy of the Bhagavad Gita. Now you can get 25 translations online with a few clicks of your mouse. You can click your mouth too, I suppose. So the story is that individuals get attracted to these ideas and practices. They tell other people who tell other people, and the thing grows. And somewhere along the way, some of the people who get influenced by these teachings happen to be influential Westerners. And they reach thousands or millions of people. And they adapt these ideas and assimilate them into their own areas of expertise. And it gets filtered out that way. And ultimately, there are all these streams and tributaries and underground wells, and it starts to soak into the soil of America